The twin suns of Kareth burned crimson and gold across the horizon, their light glinting off the ancient obsidian spires that jutted from the planet's surface like black teeth. In the shadows of those towers stood Seren, last surviving daughter of House Verith, the oldest warrior lineage of the Kalari, a proud, long-lived species whose armor was bonded to their bloodline through a technology so ancient that even the Kalari priests whispered of it in reverence. For over 2 millennia, the Verith armor had been worn only by those of her line. It was said to contain the echoes of every Verith soul before her, each ancestor's courage, pain, and wisdom embedded in its lattice of living metal. And now, that sacred armor hung silent on its pedestal, lifeless. It had rejected her. At the last of the house, Seren stood alone in the Hall of Echoes, the ceremonial chamber where the armor rested within a containment field. The armor shimmered faintly in the dim light, its surface rippling like liquid shadow. She had tried again and again to awaken it, to call it to her as her mother and grandmother had done. But the armor remained cold, inert. Her clan's ancestral fortress was little more than a ruin now. The Kalari had long since lost their war against the Terran expansion, and the surviving Kalari had scattered to the edges of known space. Seren's people had once ruled entire systems. Now, she was reduced to guarding relics of a forgotten empire. "Blood of my blood," she whispered, pressing a hand against the glass that separated her from the armor. "Why do you sleep?" The armor did not answer. It hadn't for 10 years. Outside, thunder rolled across the scorched plains, and the storm brought more than rain. A Terran transport had crash-landed 2 clicks away, its distress beacon cutting through the static. Her scanners confirmed one life sign: human, injured. Seren's first instinct was to ignore it. The humans had been her enemies. They had destroyed Kalari cities, mined sacred worlds, and enslaved her kin. But something else stirred in her, a whisper from the armor's silent mind, or perhaps from her own loneliness. "Let the dead rest," she muttered. Yet her feet carried her toward the landing site. To the human. The wreckage burned bright against the dark plains. The Terran vessel was small, likely a reconnaissance shuttle. Amid the twisted metal, Seren found the pilot, a man in a half-melted flight suit, his skin pale and bloodied. He coughed weakly as she approached, eyes blinking open to meet hers. "Kalari," he rasped, disbelief and fear mingling in his tone. "Didn't know any of you were still alive." "I could say the same of humans," Seren replied coolly, though curiosity flickered behind her amber eyes. She knelt beside him, assessing his wounds. His left leg was shattered. His side was burned. He wouldn't last the night without help. "Leave me," he said between gasps. "You'd be doing us both a favor." Seren's jaw tightened. "You invaded our worlds. You burned my people's archives. And now you ask me for mercy." "I didn't invade anything," he said, wincing. "I'm not military. I was a xenoarchaeologist. Studying your history." That gave her pause. "Studying us?" He nodded faintly. "Name's Elias Rowe. I was trying to understand what you lost. Not take it." Seren hesitated, torn between hatred and curiosity. Finally she sighed. "Your ship's medkit is destroyed. You'll die before dawn." "Guess that's fair," he murmured, closing his eyes. But she did not leave him. Instead, she lifted him with effortless strength. Kalari physiology was denser than any human's, and carried him back to the fortress. Perhaps it was pity. Perhaps it was the faint whisper she swore she heard in the back of her mind. "Bring him." 3. The armor stirs. Elias awoke 3 days later in one of the fortress's chambers, surrounded by walls carved with Kalari runes. His wounds were sealed by a viscous blue salve. He tried to sit up, but pain shot through him. Saren stood in the doorway, arms crossed. You heal slower than our kind. Don't move. He looked at her in awe. Her hair, white as starlight, fell past her shoulders, and her obsidian skin glimmered faintly beneath the torchlight. She carried herself with the weight of someone who had lost everything and still stood tall. Why save me? He asked. Because the universe doesn't need more ghosts, she said simply. Days passed. Elias grew stronger, and though their initial exchanges were tense, conversation began to flow between them. He told her of the Terran civil wars that had fractured humanity, of colonies abandoned and fleets destroyed. Humanity, too, was splintering. In return, she spoke of Kalari honor, of their bond with the symbiont armors, living constructs that chose their hosts and carried memories across generations. When she took him to see the armor, his breath caught. The Verith armor pulsed faintly within its containment field, like a heart trying to beat again. It's alive, Elias whispered. It was, she corrected. Until it rejected me. He turned toward her. Rejected you? Why? I don't know. Her voice wavered for the first time. Perhaps it no longer recognizes my blood. Or perhaps it knows that my line ends with me. Elias approached the containment glass, his hand hovering just inches away. The armor shimmered in response. A faint vibration thrummed through the chamber. Saren's eyes widened. What are you doing? I don't know, Elias said softly. It's reacting. The armor's surface rippled, and a tendril of black light reached toward him. The containment field flickered, then collapsed with a low hum. Saren lunged forward, but the armor moved faster, flowing like liquid metal across the floor and up Elias's arm. He screamed as the symbiont enveloped his body, crawling over his chest and face until it sealed itself completely around him. The runes along the walls flared with ancient light. Then silence. Elias! Saren shouted. She raised her weapon, uncertain whether to shoot or help. The armored figure turned slowly toward her. The armor was no longer dull black. It gleamed with streaks of violet energy, veins of light pulsing from within. The voice that emerged was layered, Elias's, but with echoes of something ancient and powerful. Saren Verith, it said. Your blood has not been forgotten. He froze. You how? I hear them, he said, his tone filled with awe. Your ancestors. They're inside me. For the judgment of the ancestors. For hours, Saren and Elias struggled to understand what had happened. The armor had never accepted anyone outside the bloodline, not in recorded Kalari history. Yet it had bonded with a human. The symbiont must have found something in you, Saren murmured, pacing. Something it recognizes. Elias flexed his gauntlet hand. It feels like it's learning me. Adapting. The armor is more than metal, she said. It is memory. If it chose you, it means it sees your worth. Or, her gaze darkened. It sees your danger. He looked at her. You think it's a mistake. She didn't answer. But that night, as Elias slept in the armor's embrace, she dreamed of her ancestors whispering in the dark. The line endures through choice, not blood. When dawn came, a new storm brewed on the horizon, this time not of nature. Terran's signal had entered orbit. Battleship. They're tracking your crash beacon, Saren said grimly. They'll come for you and for my world. Elias's face hardened. Then we can't let them find this place. The siege of the spire hours later, the Terran strike team descended through the storm. Dropships tore through the clouds, unleashing plasma fire upon the ruins. Seren and Elias took position atop the fortress's highest spire, ancient cannons roaring to life after centuries of silence. Seren moved like lightning, her reflexes honed by decades of isolation. Elias fought beside her, the armor amplifying his strength beyond human limits. The living metal reshaped itself to his will, forming weapons from its own surface, absorbing incoming fire. "They'll breach the western wall," Seren shouted. "Not if I can help it," Elias replied. He leapt from the parapet, crashing into a squad of soldiers below. The armor released a pulse of energy that rippled outward, knocking them flat. His voice, both human and not, echoed through the storm. "I am the shield of House Verith." Above him, Seren felt a surge of something unfamiliar. Pride. The armor had awakened again, not to a Kalari heir, but to someone who fought for her world without claiming it as his own. The battle raged until the last dropship fell flaming into the plains. The fortress stood, battered but unbroken. When the smoke cleared, Seren descended to where Elias knelt amid the ruins. The armor peeled away from his face, revealing exhaustion and a strange serenity. "You fought like one of us," she said quietly. He smiled faintly. "Maybe your ancestors approved." 6. The choice in the days that followed. Seren and Elias rebuilt what little they could. The armor remained bonded to him, though it seemed to shift in color when she was near, as if acknowledging her presence. She taught him Kalari speech. He taught her the maps of the human frontier. But one evening, as the sun set once more, the armor spoke again, not through Elias, but directly to both of them. "The house endures only through unity. Two souls bound by choice." Elias turned to her. "It's asking what we will do now." Seren looked out across the wasteland. "My people are gone. Yours are fracturing. Perhaps it's time both our species learned from one another instead of destroying what remains." The armor pulsed softly in agreement. She stepped closer to him. "Elias Rowe, will you bear my family's legacy with me? Not as its master, but as its keeper." He hesitated only a moment before bowing his head. "If it will have me." Together, they placed their hands upon the armor's chestplate. Light flared, brilliant, searing, and in that light she felt every voice of her ancestors at peace. When the glow faded, the armor divided, two halves perfectly matched. One formed around Seren, restoring her connection at last. The other remained with Elias. The two armors pulsed in unison, linked across species, across history. 7. The dawn of the two suns years later. Legends would spread of the dual guardians of Kareth, a Kalari and a human who stood side by side against the chaos consuming the outer colonies. Together, they united scattered survivors from both races, forging the beginnings of something new. A federation of equals, not conquerors and conquered. On the eve of the first peace summit, Seren stood beside Elias atop the rebuilt spire. The suns rose behind them, their light glinting off twin sets of living armor. "Do you ever think," Elias asked, "that your ancestors planned this?" She smiled faintly. "Perhaps. Or perhaps they simply trusted that the right heart would find the armor when the time was right." The armor hummed softly, alive with the resonance of two souls entwined. For the first time in centuries, Karetha's winds carried not the echoes of war, but of hope.